I'm Riley, 31, female. I live in a small city that I'm helping to build, one steel beam and concrete slab at a time. As a construction manager, my life is a world of blueprints, hard hats, and the satisfying hum of heavy machinery. It's a tough job, but it's mine, and I'm damn good at it. The problem was, my own father saw my career as a failure, a consolation prize for not being strong enough for the life he wanted for me, and he decided my sister's wedding was the perfect place to remind everyone of that fact. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The wedding reception was beautiful, held in a restored barn with fairy lights strung between exposed wooden rafters. My sister, Sarah, was beaming, her white dress a stark contrast to the rustic setting. Her new husband, Ben, a perfectly nice financial analyst who my father adored, looked like he'd won the lottery. I was happy for them, genuinely, but a knot of dread had been tightening in my stomach all evening. My father, Mark, had that look in his eye, the one he got after a few drinks, where his folksy charm sharpened into a cruel edge. As the maid of honor, my speech had been heartfelt and brief. I'd talked about growing up with Sarah, our shared secrets, and how proud I was of the woman she'd become. I ended with a sincere welcome to Ben. The applause was warm, and I sat down feeling a wave of relief, but my relief was short-lived. A moment later, my father stood up, clinking his glass for attention. He didn't have a scheduled speech, but no one was going to stop him. I just want to say a few words about my girls, he began, his voice booming. He spoke glowingly of Sarah, of her grace, her beauty, and how she'd found a good, respectable man in Ben. Then he turned his attention to me. The smile on his face didn't reach his eyes, and to my older daughter, Riley. We're all so proud of her. Unique career path. A few people chuckled uneasily. You know, she tried the military route first, wanted to be like her old man. My blood ran cold. I could feel the eyes of relatives and family friends turning towards me. My mother, Carol, shot my father a warning look from across the table, but he ignored it. He was playing to his audience now. She signed up for the army, you know, full of fire and determination. He continued, gesturing dramatically with his champagne flute. Lasted all of 8 weeks in basic training before she washed out. Just couldn't hack it. Too tough for her. He paused for effect, letting the words hang in the air. But hey, he said with a loud, forced laugh, at least she can tell a bunch of guys in hard hats what to do all day. It's not the same as leading soldiers, but it's something. The laughter that followed was scattered and uncomfortable. My sister Sarah's smile faltered. Ben looked down at his plate. I just sat there, my face burning with a humiliation so hot it felt like a physical blow. It wasn't just the public shaming, it was the lie. He had twisted the most painful decision of my life into a punchline, painting me as a failure to elevate himself. He had always resented my career, seeing it as a blue-collar job beneath our family, but this was a new low. The joke landed, and in that moment, the carefully constructed wall I had built around that part of my past crumbled into dust. I excused myself from the table, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I fled to the quiet solitude of the venue's empty bridal suite, sinking onto a plush velvet couch. His words echoed in my head, couldn't hack it. It was the story he'd told everyone for years, the one I had let him tell because fighting it was too exhausting. The truth was so much more complicated. I hadn't washed out. I had made an impossible choice. During a grueling training exercise in my 7th week, I took a hard fall and felt a sickening pop in my knee. The diagnosis was a torn ACL. The medics told me I could opt for surgery and a medical discharge, or I could push through, risk permanent damage, and likely be relegated to a desk job for the rest of my service. I was 19, devastated, and my father, the great police sergeant, had been my only phone call. I remembered the conversation like it was yesterday, his voice stripped of all warmth. A torn knee. Riley, you're an embarrassment. You don't get surgery. You get out, quietly. I'll handle the story. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't offer comfort. He only cared about how my failure would reflect on him. So I took the honorable medical discharge he arranged and buried the truth. I let him spin his tale of me being too weak, and I poured all my frustrated energy into a new path, eventually finding my footing in construction management. The lie had festered for 12 years, and now he'd ripped the old wound open in front of everyone I knew. As I sat there, trying to regain my composure, there was a soft knock on the door. "Riley, are you okay?" It was Ben's brother, David. I'd only met him a few times during the wedding planning. He was the best man, and unlike his brother, he was in the military, an army captain. He wore his dress uniform, the polished buttons and perfectly pressed fabric, a stark reminder of the world I had briefly touched. He came in and sat in the chair opposite me, his expression full of a sympathy I hadn't expected. "I'm sorry about that," he said quietly. "Your dad was way out of line." I just nodded, unable to speak. "Look." He continued, leaning forward slightly. "I don't mean to pry, but I was at Fort Jackson for a training course about 12 years ago. I heard about a trainee, a young woman who tore her ACL but still managed to roll half a mile to drag her squad mate, who had passed out from heatstroke, to evac point. She saved him from serious harm. She got a commendation for it before her medical discharge. Her name was Riley. My head snapped up. I stared at him, speechless. I had never told anyone that part of the story. It was my one private piece of pride from that whole disaster. How did you know that?" I whispered. "The guy she saved. He was in my unit a few years later. He never shut up about the tough as nails girl who saved him." David said with a small smile. "That was you, wasn't it?" The validation in his eyes was like a balm on a raw wound. In that moment, an idea began to form, a seed of righteous anger taking root in the fertile ground of years of resentment. Over the next few days, David became an unlikely co-conspirator. Fueled by a quiet fury, I asked him if he could, officially, get a copy of that commendation. "It's a long shot," he warned. "Records can be tricky," but he promised to try. Meanwhile, I focused on a different part of my plan. I knew my father's pride was deeply tied to his own career, a career he believed was spotless. But I also knew my father had a temper and a tendency to bend the rules when they inconvenienced him. I spent my nights digging, not into military records, but into public police archives and old town council meeting minutes. It took me a week of sifting through digital dust, but then I found it, a formal reprimand from early in his career. It was for a serious offense, falsifying a report to protect the son of a prominent local businessman after a DUI accident. It had been buried, a slap on the wrist that could have ended his career but didn't. He had never spoken of it. It was a stain on his perfect, honorable record. The day before Sarah and Ben were due to leave for their honeymoon, two things happened. First, David called. He'd pulled it off. A crisp, official copy of my Army Commendation Medal citation was on its way. Second, I finished my project. I took a high-resolution scan of my father's official reprimand and my commendation citation. Then, using the resources from my job, I had them professionally framed side by side in a beautiful, expensive mahogany frame with a custom engraved brass plate at the bottom. The plate read, "Legacy is about the choices we make. Some are just quieter than others." It was the most terrible, perfect wedding gift I could imagine. I arranged a small, post-wedding, pre-honeymoon brunch at my parents' house. It was just the six of us, my parents, Sarah, Ben, David, and me. The mood was still a little tense from the reception. I brought out the large gift-wrapped frame. "I wanted to give you one more gift," I said, handing it to my father. "It's really for the whole family." He looked pleased by the gesture, tearing off the paper with a smug grin. Then he saw it. His face went from confusion to disbelief, then to a dark, mottled red. He was silent, his knuckles white where he gripped the frame. My mother leaned in to look, and a soft gasp escaped her lips. Sarah and Ben crowded around to see. "What is this, Riley?" My father finally choked out, his voice dangerously low. "That," I said, my own voice calm and steady, "is the truth. That's a copy of the official reprimand you received for covering up a crime, and next to it, that's my commendation, the one I got for saving a man's life right before I was honorably discharged for an injury. I didn't wash out, Dad. You told me to lie. You buried my honor to hide your embarrassment." The silence in the room was absolute. Sarah looked from the frame to me, her eyes wide with a dawning understanding. My father seemed to shrink before my eyes, the bluster and bravado gone, replaced by the cornered look of a man whose carefully crafted image had just been shattered. He opened his mouth to argue, to yell, but before he could, something incredible happened. David, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. He looked directly at me, his back straight as a rod, and raised his hand to his brow in a slow, deliberate salute. It was a gesture of profound respect, an acknowledgement from one soldier to another. In the face of his silent, uniformed approval, my father's rage collapsed. He had no words left. The aftermath was not explosive, but a quiet, seismic shift. My father didn't speak to me for months, which was more of a relief than a punishment. The framed documents now hang in my office, a reminder not of revenge, but of the day I took back my own story. My relationship with my mother has improved. She confessed she always knew the truth, but was too afraid of my father to speak up. We are finding our way back to each other, slowly. The biggest surprise has been Sarah. She called me a week after the brunch, horrified and apologetic. She admitted she'd always resented what she perceived as my quitting, a narrative my father had fed her for years. Seeing the truth laid bare had changed everything. Our bond is stronger now, built on honesty rather than shared history. David and I have stayed in touch, a friendship forged in an unexpected alliance. I still build things for a living. I still wear a hard hat and command a team with confidence. But now, the foundation I stand on feels different. It's not the one my father tried to build for me, full of his expectations and rules. It's my own. I laid it, I tested it, and I know for a fact that it is strong enough to hold the weight of my own truth.